A lot of talk about whether the government is planning to come up with another economic stimulus package. And I know you can't answer that question directly, but at a philosophical level, do you believe there is appetite, scope, and need? Because when I asked you this question last, you said, okay, let's see how we recover from the pandemic and later we can assess whether we need more stimulus. What's your thinking currently?
From the beginning, I've kept my mind open about stimulus, where required, when required, how much ever is required. We've never closed that window. So even as we have announced 3 major packages, I say I will keep watching the economy. Stimulus or incentivizing or giving support will all be options in the hands of the government.
There are concerns, and I know that, again, I don't want to get into budget space, about government spending, that if you look at the overall first half-year spending numbers, they suggest that the government, to meet its budget announcements, will need to spend a lot more in the second half to be able to reach where you had set out in the budget. What's your sense on public investment in massive projects, which is one of the ways of being able to bounce back out of a recession, where lots of commentary suggests that experts believe the government needs to do more than is being done right now?
No, I've clearly conceded the point that if I have to spend, I have to spend on infrastructure, because that has an absolute multiplier effect which is unmatchable. And at this kind of a stage, you need the multiplier to be good, so that for every rupee spent, you get the impact. And therefore, spending on public infrastructure is something which we've kept alive. In fact, our commitment is we shall keep spending, and if I don't spend it now, the recovery is only going to be delayed. So I'm all open and ready, and I'm already committing myself to a lot of expenditure on infrastructure building.
I want to draw you on the question of the urban poor. When the pandemic struck and urban migrants had to go back to their villages, one of the things we realized was we didn't have an adequate database to track who these migrants were and therefore target benefits to them. Now attempts are being made to draw up those databases. Is there thinking in government to try and ensure, because a lot of the packages have targeted different sections, but what happens to the urban poor? How do you intend to deal with that challenge?
Well, urban poor are also part of the various packages that we've announced. We may not have used that expression, but they were not excluded. And even as we announced even a fair accommodation for them, affordable accommodation for them, rental accommodation for them, they were meant for urban poor. And therefore, they've not been excluded at all. And when we are transferring cash, which we did in the first leg of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan, it included Jan Dhan account holders. Jan Dhan account holders are not just in the rural areas, they're also in urban areas.
You know, I announced on social media when I was coming here that I'll be meeting you and interviewing you, and if people had questions, I wanted to see what was in people's mind. And the one question that everyone said you must ask the finance minister is about petrol and diesel prices. They're saying, you know, we're about to hit a century, and you know, there's all kinds of memes. I'm sure you've seen some of that. What's your thinking? Because people are now beginning to wonder whether petrol and diesel will keep rising. The government needs that revenue, but now your voters, the viewers at this time, are beginning also, ma'am, to feel the pinch.
Well, petrol and diesel are items, one, they're deregulated. Two, taxation on these items are not just the central government taxation, they are also state government taxation. So yes, the taxation both by the center and the state may add to the price much higher than the refining cost. First you import, then you refine, the refining adds a cost, and then you have taxation. So obviously, post the refining cost, the taxation adds to the price of the product. It's not therefore just the central government, it's also the state, both put together add to the tax burden on the consumer. I understand that.
There's a big debate at this moment about the RBI suggestion that let's look at corporates and coming into the banking sector. How do you view this debate about whether it's safe to allow big corporates with presence across multiple sectors to have banking licenses?
Well, I don't know whether even the RBI in today's context has taken a position on an internal working paper. and then if there is a position taken and therefore approaching the government, for me to take a call on it. However, an approach to companies holding banks or NBFCs being given a license for running banks is not new to this country. In between, sometime in the last 15 years, NBFCs have been given banking licenses. And that is not under this governor, governors earlier. So this debate is not something which is new, not just the debate. Acting on it is also not new. Reserve Bank had given license to NBFCs earlier to become banks. So these are the realities of this debate.